Hindi cinema's most reputed and successful producer-directors. His films have not only broken box office records in India, but also boast of strong performance abroad. And it's not just that, he is the host of one of India's most watched chat shows, a reality TV show judge, a fashion designer, FICCI Frames Chairman, and now also an actor, Karan Johar. Welcome to Storyboard.
Hi.
So, this tie-up that you have with Colors, you've been brought on board as a co-curator for the new English GEC. So, can you tell me what role will you be playing?
Well, I think content selection programming is something that Alia and I have been actively a part of ever since the inception of Colors Infinity. Being an avid watcher of many shows across the world, television is something that has always intrigued me, and international television I've actually been exceptionally impressed by and have learned so much from. I think they tell stories in the most unique way. Some of the best writers in America are actually writing for television, and I think television is definitely the new film. I think it's a strong medium. There's a certain romanticism about celluloid that will always remain, but the true content now lies in television. So when I was asked by the team at Colors Infinity and when team at Viacom approached me, I was vastly excited, not only because I feel very attached to the material that they wanted to showcase, but also I believe that there is a large audience in urban India that will tune in, and possibly even an audience that doesn't exist will kind of be swooned by the content that exists and what we've actually helped in showcasing. So Alia and I sat for like days and lots of conversations about should we put this show on or not this, why that. So there was a lot of debate, lots of discussion, lots of energy that went into kind of basically finding the show flow for the channel, at least at its inception level.
But you know, English GC is a very niche genre in India. Of course, it's growing, but it's very niche. So how will you make sure that the shows that you curate get the audiences as well and also have creative success?
Well, I think that some of the shows have already predetermined success. Internationally, they've already got a certain brand value, not only because of their wins, their nominations, their commercial and critical acclaim, but because of the noise they've made on social media, digitally, all over the place. So some of them that we've selected are already successful in a certain sense. So I think resonating that success, screaming that out loud, whether it's using the platform of social media or then Alia and me who are co-curators of the channel, it's up to us now to kind of energize the viewership by making sure that the noise of the channel is heard across the country. But I think the job is not too difficult because, as I said, some of the shows that are being platformed are already designed for with a certain audience friendliness that exists in its core.
You're not new to television, start with Coffee with Karan. So how would you compare the box office collection game to the television rating game?
So, you know, the ratings in Indian entertainment are governed by two bodies. Initially, I mean, just now recently BARC has taken over, but TAM was the other kind of platform that actually was giving you what we know as TRP, which is based on little boxes and across the country, 4,000 or 5,000, which I was finding personally an unfair means of actually gauging a show's success.
Especially for the genre that...
now for English, let me tell you, for English entertainment, you cannot use these boxes because those are skewed towards heartland India, and we're talking about high-end and of course deep-end urban viewership. So there is no way of really tabulating, so you can actually gauge the success of it not by the ratings but the noise they create. Like Coffee with Karan made a lot of noise. You know, it was not to do with the fact that it rated or it got whatever. You know,
but
it was
noise
made a lot of
on social media,
everywhere around.
YouTube
you can feel the buzz of a show. You know, you feel it. Like you just feel the energy. You have to gauge it by that. And also there are, of course, indicators. There are numbers that you'll get, but you know when a show is viewed and watched. So I hope that there is a new platform that will possibly account for something like Colors Infinity, because eventually this is the future, and I think they're pioneers. You know, Colors Infinity are pioneering in a strong movement that there are going to be lots of Me Too's, 3s, 4s and 44s for. You know, there will be lots of emulation that will result post the success, and I believe in the success of Colors Infinity.
So you say box office collection, calculating that is more your forte than television ratings? Or?
No, my forte is not to calculate anything because I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm a filmmaker. I make movies, and even here in this case I'm co-curating it, you know. I'm not going to sit with a balance sheet. I don't do that for my films. Of course, it's important to understand the commerce behind the art form of things, but eventually it's really about putting out great content. I try to do that as a filmmaker, and my endeavor is to do the same even as a co-curator for Colors Infinity.
Talking about you as a filmmaker, how do you manage the balance sheet at Dharma, because you have to build your reputation. That's creative success as well as commercial success. So at the end of the year, when you look at your balance sheet, how do you work at making sure you meet both considering that all producers now want to talk about, crossing the 100 crore mark in box office collections.
I think there's much. I think crossing the 100 crore mark is a very last season comment to make.
It's 200 crores.
Well, it's not even 200 crores. It's just that it's cost to profit.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of people believe that filmmaking is very profitable, but actually it's not.
No, actually the growth has been stunted in the recent past, and I think that there was a 12.5% decline even in footfalls in the last 2 years. There was definitely an increase from the year 2007 when we started tabulating box office by net figures. So we got an indication. But eventually the growth actually is not to the extent of what is reported, and that's largely due to the footfall depletion is largely due to the infrastructure that cinemas have. Because the exhibitors can't go beyond the 5,000 or 7,000 screen count in our country, whereas countries like China are growing like 10 times every year. We're just combating red tape, bureaucracy, and kind of putting out new cinemas across the country. So we are suffering on that, which is why 2 films cannot absorb a release on the same date. 2 large films will have to kind of suffer. So we are actually combating those issues. So our growth is stunted. It's definitely something that needs to be addressed. Budgets need to be controlled. So when you say 100 crores, sometimes a film that does 100 crores could still be a failure.
Yeah, because they probably spend 120 crores in
exactly.
making it.
So 100 crores to say that would be illiteracy to just speak about 100 crores, because it actually is all about cost to profit. Just like Piku is a cost to profit victory. Tanu Weds Money Manu is literally Tanu Weds Money is really like a cost to profit huge victory.
2 states?
2 states again, a 23 crore budget film does 100 net at the box office. Great cost to profit victory. But when a huge ass movie does like 100 crores, then it may not be right for the budget. So it's more about cost to profit than just the actual net number.
So how do you make sure you deliver that as well at the end of the year?
Creativity, unfortunately, can never be challenged by commerce. It's always bound by it sometimes, but never challenged by it. So unfortunately, one can do our best to understand the consumer need, to understand the cinegoer graph, to make sure that you have enough riding on the film creatively without compromising too much creatively, artistically, and yet kind of bending towards the commercial bend of things. It's always every endeavor to kind of, a studio endeavor, a production house endeavor, to strike that balance between commerce and art. It's a tussle sometimes because you're combating various energies, sometimes other filmmakers, other actors, what they bring to the table. But as somebody who runs a production house, I try and keep the balance. I try, if I've spent a lot of money, then I try that it has enough fodder for it to actually have commercial value. And yet one wants to take risks with tinier films, The commercial strain of things really comes organically to me because I'm quintessentially a Hindi film viewer myself. I've grown up in the, only watching Hindi cinema. That's the only fodder that I ever was kind of fed as a cinegoer. So for me, some things are not commercial compromises. They're organically a part of my DNA as a filmmaker.
But you also said in some of your interviews that there's some films that you're not able to produce because you don't think they will deliver, commercial success.
Right.
So do you think that as a filmmaker, that sort of limits you, or do you then
sometimes the content that I don't like to make as content I don't like to watch either. So something very dark, depressing, dark grey, whatever it is, very black in terms of its cinema is not something. When I mean black, I mean in terms of noir. It's not something that I engage in myself as a cinegoer. I like to make films that I like to watch. It's very simple. I made a few mistakes. I made films that I tried to kind of go out of the box, like a horror film that didn't work, or a very deeply political film that I took up that wasn't organically a part of what I had visualized. But I do believe that I make films that I like to watch myself. And that's always been my principle at Dharma Productions.
But do you think this kind of obsession by the media, the cinegoers, the filmmakers with the box office collections is healthy? Because that's become the barometer of
in fact,
judging talent.
I gave an interview recently where I said this entire fixation with box office numbers is going to be the end of creativity in our business. I think not only that, because the media coverage is so intense about box office that it's become dining table conversation even for the average consumer and cinegoer, which is really ridiculous. Because I've heard conversations, if it's not a 100 crore film, I don't want to see it. Now that's just ridiculous. Why don't you go and just make up your mind? There are too many box office sites, and some of them are not even validated. Some of them are not even authentic. They're just, everyone's rambling about box office now. Box office is the end commercial result of a film, but there's a creative journey you have to ensue to reach that commercial result. And I want cinegoers goes to walk that path more than just believe what they're reading and base a film that a hit film is a good film and a flop film is a bad film. That is not necessarily the case.
We've seen, a couple of years ago, the trend started of business grads joining production houses. So whether it's UTV, whether it's YRF, and whether it's your friend Apurva, who is now the CEO of Dharma, how does that work, and how do the creative and business verticals at Dharma coexist and
Because
work?
I think we have we have completely demarcated territories. Like I do creative, Apurva completely runs financial and business. He doesn't walk my path, I don't walk his. We have a complete clear divide, and that's why that synergy works beautifully, because he really understands the commerce, the value, the financials of all the operations at Dharma, and I completely take charge of creative. So when that happens, and of course it's a business, it's an enterprise, and you can totally take charge of the finances of a film, and you understood enough about how the film industry operates, which, having said that, is we operate in a really strange way, because the people in the movie industry sometimes combat what the corporate world understands of legalities and modalities, because we have a terrible word called emotion that also finds its way right through our dealings.
Okay. In one of the interviews I read that, given that Dharma has a very strong presence overseas, unlike a lot of production houses and banners, the overseas market is pegged at, I think, 860 crore rupees, and this is a number I picked up from FICCI Frames, and the industry average is 7%. But I believe Dharma's endeavor is to increase that contribution to around half.
That's not necessarily true. I have to tell you, the breakup of certain films is the net box office business is about 80% of the income that comes in. The diaspora market, or what you call the overseas market, is 20%. But on certain films, that 20 becomes 40. Very rarely, maybe 50. And within the overseas, there are also there's a plateau level that one has reached. UAE has actually been enhanced. America has actually dipped, and UK has really dipped. America has been enhanced for certain films. North America does really well for the more critically acclaimed movies, or the ones that have been cerebrally appreciated or critically appreciated as well. Whereas UK has dipped by over 60% from the last decade. So even the diaspora market is very erratic. Suddenly there'll be a spurt of China that will give PK $20 million, but that's few and far between. Or English that does terrifically in Japan, or Germany being a new spike in the European market. But these are very rare instances, and they're not a norm to follow in the year. So you have to take the overseas recovery as 20% basically. That used to be a little more, and that 20 sometimes becomes 10, sometimes even 5. So 20 is the higher end limit. So my endeavor cannot pursue to graft the diaspora market.
Just for
Dharma. Not really. I don't look at it.
Because you're known as an NRI filmmaker,
which is I consider an insult. Because I think people who say that are very stupid, because they don't know what NRIs are. I mean, NRIs are not a breed of aliens.
At the end of the day.
They're not aliens sitting across the world. They're more traditional, more Indian, more rooted than any of us. So when you say, a modern film is an NRI film, no, a modern film could not appeal to them perhaps. They're far more rooted. When you're detached from your roots, you seek that attachment through cinema, through books, through music, and that makes you more traditional. So when people say you're an NRI filmmaker, I'm like, that comes from complete and wholesome illiteracy.
Okay. I want to talk to you about co-productions. Of course, in some cases, the more the merrier, but in some cases, like The Lunchbox, which had, I think, 15 producers, including you, the feeling was that no producer really wanted to stick his neck out and finance a film that may or may not do well
Actually, that was not true. It was made before the UTV and Dharma came on board, actually. It was a lot to do with the fact that it had many people funding it, from the Pathé to other French and German. They made it collectively because it was not meant for a domestic audience at that time. Only 2 people came on board after their collaborations, really, because we believed that we needed to position that film. And yet, it's true, when you make a film that requires a certain kind of budget with a certain cast and content that is off mainstream, it's going to be scary for people, because we don't have their audience that are accustomed to this kind of viewership. Also, when you come out with a really small niche product, you could get trampled by larger studios and big releases and lose showcasing, which is our biggest combat. We may have great faith in our material, but our exhibitors assuring us an 8-week run, just like it happens in North America, no, that's not the way our system works here. There they have films that grow every week, because they start with 4 screens and they go on to 40 and then to 400. We start from 40 and go down to 10 and then go down to 2 and you're out. We don't give films a chance, because that's our exhibition mishap. And that's something that needs to be addressed, and as a community and fraternity, our endeavor is to do just that. But it's still very nascent for us to take large leaps.
How do you then now look at brand Dharma Productions and the role that brand Karan Johar, which is, I mean, you know, you're not just director producer anymore, you're so much more than that, play a role in nurturing and enhancing brand Dharma Productions?
I think your question lies in your answer. Your answer lies in the question actually. Brand Dharma has nurtured new talent and has actually cultivated young filmmakers, new actors, and we are spreading our wings, whether it's with collaborations, co-productions. I have no problem with sharing my brand as long as I put out content. So the two big things that we look at are content, which is the biggest thing. Like we chase content. I chase the two states. If I like it, I will collaborate with no matter what. The other thing we're trying to do is nurture new talent. So it's content and nurturing is what we actually do at Dharma, and that's what made us the production house we are. We've had 13 debut directors. We've had 3 now major motion picture movie stars that have come out of the company, and we want to enhance this number. And the one thing that is not something we compromise on at all is content. Content could fail you, content could sometimes be the reason for your success, but the endeavor is always to chase content and not just projects.
And brand Karan Johar, what does he lend to?
I think brand Karan Johar is something that has just evolved on its own. It's not something that I actually strategized. It's something that started as a result of my television presence, and perhaps that, you know, I had a personality that could adhere itself to various other platforms that were off screen as well, and it's just cultivated. It's a strange creature, really. I haven't been able to analyze it myself.
Given the importance of weekend collection, marketing has become very important, but we see a sort of, you know, blind run towards promotion. We see, you know, the actors going to the same reality TV shows, you know, same kind of interview. It's the same run. Why does an industry that is so creative, so uncreative when it comes to marketing itself, given it's become so important?
Actually, it's some people started it. Actually, it becomes a trend. But I want to tell you, we do exactly what even the West does. Nobody seems to have a problem with that. They go to the same Jay Leno show. They'll go to the same. They used to go to Oprah earlier to promote a film or a book or whatever. What our equivalent of those talk shows are reality shows, because that's the ethos of our viewing in our country. We have 5 or 7 prime properties that are watched by over 50 million Indians. So if we have a film that needs to be positioned on those channels and on those shows, that assures a certain reach. And what you must understand, if you haven't found out, there's something called reach, appeal, interest. So if, appeal and interest are something you have no control, that your creative dictates that. But reach is something that does determine your first day number. And reach can only happen when you platform yourself efficiently on television, because the reach of that is phenomenal. So that's what I think we chase. But having said that, there's a lot of change in the marketing strategies of all our films. We've cut down on a lot of paid editorial. We've cut down on hoardings in the city. We've cut down on city visits and dances at malls, because we realize that we're entertaining people who are not coming back and buying any of your tickets. They just enjoy your dance in the mall and that's it. So there's a lot of vanilla stuff that we were doing that is now we're completely eradicating. And there's going to be a new approach by the next year of everyone's individual marketing strategy that will be film specific and not something that's generic.
Okay, Karan, thank you so much and all the best for Colors Infinity.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.